The morning sky above New York City turned dark at exactly 11:47 a.m. People stopped on the sidewalks and looked up. Cars slowed down. Children pointed with wide eyes. Above them, massive ships blocked out the sun. The ships were bigger than anything humans had ever built. Each one was the size of a small city. Their metal hulls were black and smooth, covered in lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. There were 12 of them floating over Earth's major cities: London, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing, Delhi, São Paulo, all under the shadow of alien ships. Sarah Chen was in her lab at Stanford University when the ships appeared. She was a scientist who studied life on other planets, though she had never expected to see aliens with her own eyes. Her phone buzzed with emergency alerts. Her computer screen showed news reports from around the world. The same thing was happening everywhere. "This is not a drill," the news anchor said, his voice shaking. "We have confirmation of alien spacecraft over major population centers worldwide." Sarah ran outside with her colleagues. Students and teachers gathered on the campus lawn, all staring up at the enormous shadow above San Francisco Bay. The ship hung there silently, not moving, just waiting. Washington, D.C. President Martinez was rushed to a secure bunker beneath the White House. Military leaders from around the world held emergency meetings. Phone lines buzzed between world capitals. Everyone had the same questions. Who were these aliens? What did they want? The answer came 3 hours later. Every television on Earth suddenly showed the same image. Every radio played the same voice. Every phone displayed the same message. The alien communication came through clearly, though the voice sounded strange and mechanical. The face on the screen was not human. It had pale gray skin and large black eyes. Its head was larger than a human head, with a long neck and no visible hair. When it spoke, its mouth moved differently than a human mouth. "People of Earth," the alien said. "I am Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire. Your world now belongs to us." The message was simple and direct. The alien explained that his people had conquered hundreds of planets across the galaxy. They had technology far beyond anything humans possessed. Resistance was pointless. "You have 72 hours to surrender completely," Admiral Kethvar continued. "Lay down all weapons, disband all military forces, accept our rule without question. If you comply, your species will be allowed to live as servants of the Empire. If you refuse, we will destroy your civilization and take your world anyway." The transmission ended. Earth fell silent. In the hours that followed, panic spread across the planet. Some people fled to the countryside, hoping to hide. Others gathered in churches, mosques, temples, and synagogues to pray. Many simply sat in their homes holding their families close. But not everyone was afraid. General Marcus Torres was in the Pentagon when the message ended. He was a soldier who had fought in 3 wars and never backed down from a fight. He looked at the other military leaders around the table. 72 hours, he said quietly. That's enough time to prepare. "Prepare for what?" asked another general. "Did you see those ships? Our weapons probably can't even scratch them." "Maybe," Torres replied, "but that doesn't mean we give up without trying." Around the world, similar conversations were happening. In military bases, in government buildings, in small towns and big cities, humans were making a choice. Some chose to accept defeat before the fight began, but many others chose something different. Dr. James Harrison was an engineer in Detroit. When he saw the alien ships, he didn't think about surrendering. He thought about the factory where he worked. He thought about the tools and machines and workers who knew how to build things. He started making phone calls. Maria Santos lived in a small village in Mexico. She taught school and raised chickens. When the alien message played on her old radio, she thought about her students. She thought about her grandfather, who had fought against invaders before. She started talking to her neighbors. In Australia, truck driver Bill Mackenzie was delivering supplies to a mining town when the ships appeared. He thought about the tough men and women who worked in the mines, who dealt with danger every day. He knew they wouldn't give up easily. Admiral Kethvar watched Earth from his command ship. He had done this many times before. Usually, the primitive species surrendered quickly once they saw the Empire's power. The smart ones gave up without a fight. The foolish ones fought briefly and died quickly. Their technology is very basic, reported his science officer. They have no energy shields, no faster-than-light travel, no plasma weapons. This should be simple. Have they sent any surrender messages yet? The Admiral asked. No, sir. But there are still 60 hours remaining. Kethvar nodded. He had studied human history. He knew they fought wars among themselves constantly. Surely they would understand when they were completely outmatched. But as the hours passed, something strange happened. Instead of surrender messages, the aliens intercepted other communications. Military units were moving into position. Factories were switching to wartime production. Scientists were sharing research. Leaders were making speeches about fighting back. This is unusual, the science officer reported. Most species begin surrender negotiations by now. Sarah Chen worked through the night in her laboratory. She had managed to get samples of metal from a small alien probe that had crashed in Nevada. The military had brought it to her because she was an expert on alien materials. Under her microscope, the alien metal looked different from anything on Earth. But it wasn't magical. It followed the same basic rules of physics and chemistry. If she could understand how it worked, maybe humans could figure out how to fight it. In military bases around the world, soldiers cleaned their weapons and prepared for battle they knew they might not survive. They studied the alien ships through telescopes and cameras looking for any weakness. In cities and towns, ordinary people made their own preparations. They gathered food and water. They planned escape routes. They organized neighborhood watch groups. They taught their children to hide and be quiet. The second day passed. The third day began. Admiral Kethvar was growing impatient. No surrender. Messages had come from Earth. Instead, his sensors detected increased military activity across the planet. The humans were actually preparing to fight. Should we send another message, sir? Asked his communications officer. No, Kethvar replied. Let them see what happens to those who defy the Empire. He turned to his weapons officer. Begin targeting their major cities. Prepare to demonstrate our power. Which cities, sir? All of them. As the final hours of the ultimatum ticked away, both sides prepared for what was coming. The aliens prepared to crush another primitive species that didn't know when to give up. The humans prepared to fight an enemy they couldn't defeat. But the aliens had made one crucial mistake. They thought they understood humans because they had studied human history. They saw the wars, the conflicts, the times when humans had surrendered to stronger enemies. What they didn't understand was that humans were different when their entire species faced extinction. When everything they loved was threatened, humans didn't think about winning or losing. They thought about fighting. The 72 hours ended at exactly 11:47 a.m., 3 days after the ships had first appeared. The war for Earth was about to begin. At 11:47 a.m., the alien ships opened fire. Beams of blue energy shot down from the massive vessels. They struck military bases first. The Pentagon in Washington vanished in a flash of light. Naval bases around the world turned to ash in seconds. Airfields disappeared, along with the planes on them. But the aliens had made their first mistake. They targeted only the obvious military installations. They thought this would break human resistance quickly, like it had worked on other worlds. They didn't understand that humans were different. Sarah Chen felt the ground shake beneath her laboratory as the alien beam struck a nearby Air Force base. She grabbed her research files and ran for the basement shelter. Around her, other scientists and students did the same. Did they get the backup servers? She shouted to her assistant, Tom, as they reached the underground bunker. Yes, everything's uploaded to the distributed network, Tom replied. Even if they destroy every university, the research will survive. This was something the aliens hadn't expected. Humans had learned to spread their knowledge across thousands of computers around the world. Destroying one place didn't destroy the information. In Detroit, Dr. James Harrison watched from his factory as the alien beam destroyed the local military depot. The workers around him looked scared, but they didn't run away. What do we do now, Doc? asked one of the welders. Harrison looked at the alien ship hanging over the city. "We get to work," he said. "We've got 3 shifts starting today. Anyone who wants to leave can leave. Anyone who wants to fight can stay. Only 12 people left. The rest stayed to work." General Torres had been in a command bunker outside Washington when the Pentagon was destroyed. He watched the reports coming in. From around the world, the aliens had destroyed obvious targets, but they had missed something important. Most of Earth's military wasn't in big bases anymore. After decades of fighting smaller wars, armies had learned to spread out. Small units, hidden equipment, mobile forces. These were harder to find and destroy. "Status report," Torres commanded. "Primary installations are gone, sir," reported a young officer. "But we've still got 60% of our mobile forces intact. Underground bunkers are operational. The distributed command system is working." Torres nodded. Humans had learned from history. They knew that big targets got hit first. The real fight would come from the survivors. Admiral Kethvar watched the destruction from his command ship. The human military bases burned beautifully. This was always his favorite part of a conquest, the moment when a primitive species realized how hopeless their situation was. "Sir, we're receiving communications from the surface," his communications officer reported. "Surrender offers?" the admiral asked. "No, sir. They appear to be organizing." Kethvar frowned. "Show me." The screens around his command bridge lit up with intercepted human transmissions, radio signals, internet communications, telephone calls. Thousands of them. Millions of them. But they weren't messages of surrender. They were people coordinating resistance. "Truck convoy heading east on Highway 40, said one voice. "Medical supplies ready for distribution," said another. "Factory conversion complete, beginning production." "What are they producing?" Kethvar asked. "Unknown, sir. The communications are partially encrypted." In Mexico, Maria Santos gathered the people from her village in the old church. The building was stone and had thick walls. It felt safer than anywhere else. "The government radio says to evacuate to the cities," said one of the farmers. Maria shook her head. "The cities are targets. We stay here and take care of each other." "But what can we do against those ships?" asked another villager. "We survive," Maria said simply. "We help whoever comes to us. We remember who we are." She didn't know it yet, but villages like hers all over the world were making the same choice. Instead of running to big cities where the aliens could kill them all at once, humans were spreading out. They were making themselves harder to destroy. In Australia, Bill Mackenzie drove his truck down a dirt road toward the mining town of Kalgoorlie. The radio was full of emergency broadcasts, but he kept going. The miners would need supplies, and someone had to bring them. When he arrived, he found the town transformed. The miners had been busy. They had dug new tunnels and hidden entrances. They had moved their equipment underground. They were preparing to disappear into the earth itself. "You should have stayed away, Bill," said the mine foreman. "It's not safe here." "Nowhere's safe now," Bill replied. "But at least here we can work together." The second wave of alien attacks came at sunset. This time, the aliens targeted power plants and communication centers. Electrical grids failed across continents. Internet connections went dark. Cell phone towers fell silent. But humans adapted again. In the darkness, amateur radio operators switched on their equipment. Ham radio networks that had been hobbies suddenly became vital communication links. Messages passed from station to station across the world. Generator trucks drove through neighborhoods, providing power where it was needed most. Solar panels and wind turbines that had been backup systems became primary power sources. Dr. Harrison's factory worked by candlelight and backup generators. His workers had spent the day modifying manufacturing equipment. Instead of car parts, they were making something else. "First batch is ready," called one of the workers. Harrison examined the products. They looked like simple metal pipes, but they were designed based on Sarah Chen's analysis of the alien materials. The pipes contained a mixture of chemicals that should react violently with the alien metal. "How many can we make?" Harrison asked. If we work 3 shifts, maybe 1,000 a day, the worker replied. Make it 2,000, Harrison said. Sleep is for peacetime. Sarah Chen worked by flashlight in her underground laboratory. She had been studying the alien metal samples for days now. She was starting to understand how their technology worked. The alien ships used a force field to protect themselves. But the force field had a specific frequency, like a radio station. If humans could match that frequency and reverse it, they might be able to disrupt the shields. She called the few telephone numbers that still worked, reaching out to physicists and engineers around the world. They compared notes and shared ideas. Slowly, a plan began to form. On the 3rd day after the attacks began, the aliens made their second mistake. They landed ground troops. Admiral Kethvar had grown tired of waiting for surrender. The humans were being more stubborn than expected. It was time to occupy their cities and show them what defeat looked like. Thousands of small landing craft descended from the main ships. They carried Zephyrian soldiers in powered armor, equipped with energy weapons and personal shields. These forces had conquered dozens of worlds. A few primitive humans should be no challenge at all. The landing craft touched down in major cities around the world. The alien soldiers emerged expecting to find cowering populations ready to submit. Instead, they found empty streets. In New York City, the aliens marched through Times Square. Their sensors detected no human life signs in the immediate area. The buildings appeared abandoned. But humans were watching. From rooftops, from subway tunnels, from hidden rooms in skyscrapers, they watched and learned. They saw how the aliens moved. They studied their equipment. They looked for weaknesses. The aliens had expected to find humans hiding in obvious places: government buildings, military bases, important infrastructure. Instead, they found these places either destroyed or empty. The humans were everywhere and nowhere. They were in places the aliens didn't think to look. They were learning and planning and preparing. General Torres received reports from resistance cells around the world. The pattern was the same everywhere. The aliens had superior technology, but they didn't understand humans. They're looking for our command centers, he told his staff. They want to find our leaders and force them to surrender. What do we do? Asked one of his officers. We don't give them any leaders to find, Torres replied. Every person fights their own war. Every family makes their own decisions. We become ungovernable. This was humanity's secret weapon. Other species in the galaxy had centralized governments and military structures. Destroy the leaders and the species would surrender. But humans had always been stubborn individuals. They didn't need someone in authority to tell them how to fight for their homes. As the first week of occupation began, Admiral Kethvar realized he had a problem. His forces controlled empty buildings and deserted streets, but they didn't control the humans. Somewhere in the shadows, 7 billion people were making their own plans. The real war was about to begin. The first human attack came at dawn on the 8th day. In Detroit, Dr. Harrison and his workers had spent a week preparing. They had studied the alien patrol routes. They had watched how the soldiers moved through the streets. They had learned, when the aliens were most vulnerable, the aliens walked in groups of 4, their powered armor making them look like metal giants. Their energy weapons could cut through concrete walls. Their personal shields could stop bullets and explosives. But the humans weren't using bullets or explosives. As an alien patrol passed the abandoned factory, they heard a sound from inside. It sounded like humans hiding. The 4 soldiers moved toward the building to investigate. They didn't see the trap until it was too late. The factory workers had rigged the building with Harrison's special pipes. When the aliens entered, the pipes released their chemical mixture. It spread through the air like fog and settled on the alien armor. At first, nothing happened. The aliens searched the empty factory, found nothing, and started to leave. Then their armor began to smoke. The chemical mixture reacted with the alien metal exactly as Sarah Chen had predicted. The armor plates started to dissolve. Warning lights flashed on the aliens' helmets. Their shields flickered and died. The factory workers struck from hidden positions with simple weapons, hammers, crowbars, welding torches. Without their advanced armor, The aliens were just as vulnerable as anyone else. 3 alien soldiers died in the first 30 seconds. The fourth managed to send a distress signal before Harrison himself finished him with a pipe wrench. Similar attacks happened around the world that same morning. In Mexico, Maria Santos and her villagers used farming equipment to destroy alien vehicles. In Australia, Bill Mackenzie and the miners collapsed a tunnel on an alien patrol. In China, factory workers in Shanghai used acid to eat through alien equipment. None of these attacks should have worked. The aliens had better technology, better weapons, better armor, but they were facing an enemy they had never encountered before, an entire species that refused to fight fair. Admiral HFY received the first casualty reports with disbelief. 17 patrols had been attacked simultaneously across the globe. 43 soldiers were dead. Dozens of vehicles and equipment pieces were destroyed. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "These primitives don't have weapons that can penetrate our armor." "The attacks appear to be coordinated, sir," his intelligence officer reported. "They're using some kind of chemical weapon that dissolves our protective materials." "How did they develop such a weapon so quickly?" "Unknown, sir. We believe they analyzed debris from our scouts and found a weakness." HFY stared at the tactical display showing Earth. Red dots marked the locations of attacks. They were spread across every continent. There was no pattern he could identify, no central command structure to target. "Increase patrol strength," he ordered. "Groups of 8 soldiers instead of 4. Maintain communication at all times." But increasing patrol size just gave the humans bigger targets. Sarah Chen had shared her chemical formula with scientists around the world. Every laboratory, every school chemistry class, every high school science teacher was now part of humanity's weapons program. They made the dissolving chemical from common industrial materials. The formula spread through the internet, through radio broadcasts, through printed papers passed from hand to hand. Soon, every human settlement had the ability to destroy alien armor. But the humans didn't stop there. They improved the formula. They found new ways to use it. They created weapons the aliens had never imagined. In London, a group of teenagers used water balloons filled with the chemical mixture to attack alien vehicles. The balloons burst against the armor plating, and within minutes the vehicles were unable to function. In Tokyo, office workers trapped in a skyscraper turned the building's fire sprinkler system into a weapon. When aliens entered the building, the sprinklers activated, showering them with the chemical mixture. In Rio de Janeiro, children threw chemical-soaked soccer balls at alien patrols. The aliens' sensors couldn't identify soccer balls as weapons, so they didn't defend against them. General Torres coordinated these attacks from hidden bunkers around the world, but he wasn't giving orders. Instead, he was sharing information. He told resistance groups about successful tactics. He helped them learn from each other's victories and mistakes. "The key is not to fight like an army," he explained in a radio broadcast to resistance leaders. "Armies have rules. Armies are predictable. We need to fight like humans, creative, stubborn, and completely unwilling to play by their rules." The aliens tried to adapt. They developed new armor that resisted the human chemical. They changed their patrol routes randomly. They used flying vehicles instead of ground patrols, but every time they adapted, the humans adapted faster. When the aliens created chemical-resistant armor, Dr. Harrison's factory workers developed electromagnetic pulse devices from microwave ovens and car batteries. The crude devices could shut down alien electronics from a distance. When the aliens used flying vehicles, humans shot them down with improvised weapons. Farmers used their crop-dusting planes to ram alien aircraft. Construction workers used cranes to grab alien vehicles and smash them against buildings. When the aliens tried to predict human behavior, the humans did the opposite of what made sense. They attacked during ceremonies when they should have been hiding. They retreated from victories when they should have pressed their advantage. They helped wounded aliens when they should have killed them. The last tactic confused Admiral HFY most of all. "They saved Lieutenant Zexhi's life," his medical officer reported. "The human medics treated his injuries and returned him to our lines." "Why would they do that?" HFY asked. "Unknown, sir. It makes no tactical sense, but it made perfect human sense." Maria Santos had found the wounded alien soldier near her village. He was young and scared, far from home. She treated him the same way she would treat any injured person, because that's who humans were. The alien soldier returned to his unit confused and shaken. He told his companions about the human woman who had risked her own safety to save him. Other soldiers heard similar stories. For the first time in Zephyrian military history, soldiers began to question their orders. Meanwhile, the human attacks grew bolder and more creative. In Moscow, a group of circus performers used their acrobatic skills to infiltrate an alien command post. They swung from building to building like flying squirrels, planted explosive charges in ventilation systems, and escaped before the aliens knew they were there. In Mumbai, street vendors organized into an intelligence network. They sold food and trinkets to alien soldiers, all while observing their habits and weaknesses. The information they gathered helped resistance fighters plan perfect ambushes. In São Paulo, a samba school turned their carnival preparations into weapons manufacturing. Colorful floats hid armored vehicles, costume workshops produced camouflage gear, dance rehearsals became combat training. The aliens had conquered hundreds of worlds, but they had never faced anything like this. Other species fought conventional wars with armies and governments. When their military was defeated, they surrendered. Humans didn't have just one military. Every human was potentially a soldier. Every building could hide a weapon. Every friendly gesture might be a trap. After 1 month of occupation, Admiral Kethvar had lost more soldiers than in his previous 10 campaigns combined. His forces controlled government buildings and military installations, but they didn't control Earth. The humans were still fighting, still adapting, still refusing to accept defeat. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving reports from other worlds in the Empire. There are uprisings on Kepler 442b, Proxima Centauri C, and Wolf 359b. The conquered species are rebelling." "What triggered these rebellions?" Kethvar asked, though he already suspected the answer. "They appear to be inspired by the human resistance, sir. Our own news broadcasts about the fighting on Earth have spread to other worlds." Kethvar realized he faced a problem larger than one stubborn planet. The human resistance was giving hope to every enslaved species in the Empire. Their refusal to surrender was becoming a virus spreading across the galaxy. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Kethvar began to wonder if conquest was possible against an enemy that refused to be conquered. But the humans weren't finished surprising him yet. 3 months after the invasion began, Sarah Chen made a discovery that would change everything. She was working in a hidden laboratory beneath the ruins of MIT when she cracked the alien communication system. The breakthrough came from studying captured alien equipment and intercepting their transmissions for weeks. "Tom, look at this," she called to her assistant. On her computer screen, alien text scrolled past in real time. "I can read their messages now." "What are they saying?" Tom asked. Sarah's face went pale as she translated. "They're not just fighting us. They're fighting rebellions on dozens of worlds. The whole empire is falling apart." She quickly sent this information to resistance cells around the world. Within hours, every human fighter knew the truth. They weren't just fighting for Earth anymore. They were fighting for the freedom of countless species across the galaxy. General Torres received Sarah's intelligence in his command bunker in the Rocky Mountains. He stared at the translated messages for a long time before calling his staff together. "Change of mission," he announced. "We're not just defending Earth anymore. We're going on the offensive." His officers looked confused. "Sir, we don't have spaceships. How can we attack their other worlds?" Torres smiled grimly. "We don't attack their other worlds. We attack their ships here and take them." The plan was insane. Humans had been fighting a guerrilla war from the ground, using hit-and-run tactics and improvised weapons. Now Torres wanted them to capture alien spacecraft and fight in space. But humans had been doing impossible things for 3 months. This was just one more impossibility to overcome. The first space capture happened over the Pacific Ocean. Captain Elena Vasquez had been a commercial airline pilot before the invasion. Now she led a team of pilots flying modified crop-dusting planes loaded with Harrison's chemical weapons. The target was an alien supply ship that made regular runs between the main fleet and ground forces. It flew low over the ocean, protected by 2 escort fighters. Elena's team attacked at dawn. The crop dusters were too small and slow for alien sensors to identify as threats. They flew right up to the supply ship and released their chemical payload directly onto the hull. The alien ship's armor began dissolving immediately. Warning sirens blared inside the vessel as life support systems failed. The ship made an emergency, landing on the ocean surface. Human naval vessels hidden among fishing boats and pleasure craft surrounded the crippled alien ship. The crew surrendered rather than drown. Within hours, human engineers were studying every inch of the captured vessel. They learned how alien engines worked, how their navigation systems functioned, how their weapons operated. More importantly, they learned that alien ships could be flown by humans with the right training. Elena became the first human pilot to fly an alien spacecraft. The controls were different from Earth aircraft, but the basic principles were the same. Apply power, adjust direction, manage speed and altitude. It's like learning to drive a new car, she reported to Torres. Difficult, but not impossible. Within weeks, humans had captured 3 more alien ships. Pilots like Elena trained other pilots. Engineers like Harrison modified the alien technology to work with human hands and human thinking. But the real breakthrough came when Sarah Chen figured out how to hack the alien computer systems. Their security is based on the assumption that only Zephyrians would ever have access to their technology, she explained to a group of human scientists. They never imagined another species trying to break into their systems. Using captured alien computers, Sarah accessed the Empire's communication network. Suddenly, humans could eavesdrop on every alien message, intercept every order, and monitor every ship movement. They learned that Admiral Kethvar was under pressure from his superiors. The rebellion on Earth had inspired uprisings on 47 worlds. The Empire was fighting wars across the galaxy. They learned the locations of alien supply bases, the schedules of transport ships, and the weaknesses in alien defenses. Most importantly, they learned that other species wanted to help humans but didn't know how. Sarah began broadcasting messages to the rebel worlds. She used the alien communication network to send information about human fighting techniques. She shared the chemical formulas for dissolving alien armor. She sent plans for improvised weapons and guerrilla tactics. People of the galaxy, her message began. We are humans of Earth. We are fighting for our freedom and yours. We refuse to surrender. We refuse to give up. If you want to be free, fight with us. The response was overwhelming. Messages poured in from dozens of worlds. Species that had been enslaved for generations began coordinating their rebellions with human resistance fighters. The Krelans of Wolf 359b used human tactics to sabotage alien mining operations. The Vorthek of Kepler 442b modified human chemical weapons to work with their biology. The Zentaurians of Proxima Centauri c organized their entire population into resistance cells based on human models. Admiral Kethvar watched his empire crumble from his flagship above Earth. Each day brought new reports of rebellion, sabotage, and lost territories. Worlds that had been peaceful for decades were now war zones. Sir, High Command is ordering us to withdraw from Earth, his communications officer reported. Withdraw? Kethvar couldn't believe it. We still have superior firepower. We can destroy their cities, kill billions of them. High Command believes the human resistance is inspiring too many rebellions, sir. They want us to focus our forces on more strategic worlds. But Kethvar had spent months fighting humans. He knew withdrawing wouldn't solve the problem. The humans would follow them. Somehow, they would find a way to keep fighting. He was right. Elena Vasquez now commanded a fleet of 20 captured alien ships, all crewed by human pilots and engineers. They had learned to modify alien weapons, navigate by alien star maps, and communicate on alien frequencies. When the main alien fleet began withdrawing from Earth's orbit, Elena's fleet followed them. The first space battle between humans and aliens took place near the asteroid belt. Elena's ships were outnumbered 10-1, but they fought like humans had always fought, with creativity, stubbornness, and complete disregard for conventional tactics. They used the asteroids as cover, playing hide-and-seek among the floating rocks. They modified their weapons to fire human-made chemical warheads that could dissolve alien armor. They coordinated their attacks with resistance fighters on alien-controlled worlds. When 3 alien cruisers moved to intercept them, Elena's pilots did something the aliens never expected. They rammed their own ships into the alien vessels, but not before evacuating their crews in escape pods. The kamikaze attacks disabled 2 alien cruisers and damaged the third. Human engineers salvaged the wrecks and learned how to build larger spacecraft. Within 6 months of the first space battle, humans had constructed their own shipyard in orbit around Earth. They built new vessels using a combination of salvaged, alien technology and human engineering. The new ships looked nothing like sleek alien designs. They were blocky, ugly, and covered in improvised weapons and jury-rigged systems, but they worked. More importantly, they carried human crews who fought with human determination. Elena led the human fleet in increasingly bold raids against alien supply lines. They attacked convoys carrying reinforcements to rebellious worlds. They captured alien commanders and learned their strategic plans. They rescued enslaved populations and recruited them for the growing rebellion. The war that had started with alien ships destroying human cities had become something else entirely. Now it was a galactic revolution, with humans leading the fight for freedom. Admiral Kethvar found himself fighting not one war but dozens of wars simultaneously. Every world in the Empire was now a potential battleground. Every species was a potential enemy. And at the center of it all were the humans, the primitives who should have surrendered in the first 72 hours. Instead, they had shown the galaxy what was possible when a species refused to accept defeat. The tide of war was turning, but the final battle was yet to come. 1 year after the first alien ships appeared over Earth, Admiral Kethvar faced the end of his empire. The rebellion had spread to every corner of the galaxy. 63 worlds had declared independence. Alien supply lines were cut. Entire fleets had mutinied or been destroyed. The Zephyrian Empire, which had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years, was collapsing. And it was all because of one stubborn planet full of humans who refused to surrender. Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the tactical display. Red dots marked rebel-controlled systems. Yellow dots showed worlds in open revolt. Green dots indicated the few remaining loyal territories. There were far more red and yellow dots than green ones. "Sir," his intelligence officer reported, "we've lost contact with the Vega sector. The entire Fourth Fleet appears to have surrendered to human-led forces. How many ships did we lose?" Kethvar asked quietly. 200 vessels, sir, including 3 dreadnoughts. Kethvar closed his eyes. 200 ships surrendered without firing a shot. A year ago, those same vessels could have conquered 10 worlds. Now their crews refused to fight. The humans had done something no other species had ever managed. They had convinced Zephyrian soldiers that the war was wrong. It started with small acts of kindness. Human medics treating wounded aliens. Human civilians sharing food with hungry soldiers. Human children playing with alien pets. Maria Santos had been the first, treating that wounded soldier near her village. Her example spread across the galaxy. Other humans began showing mercy to their enemies. They proved that conquest didn't have to end in hatred. Many alien soldiers began to question why they were fighting. They had been told that other species were primitive and savage, but the humans they met were neither primitive nor savage. They were people fighting for their homes and families. Some aliens simply refused orders. Others deserted their posts. A few even joined the rebellion openly. Captain Elena Vasquez now commanded the largest human fleet in space, over 300 vessels crewed by humans and aliens working together. Her ships carried fighters from dozens of species, all united in their desire for freedom. "Admiral," her communications officer called, "we're receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian High Command." Elena nodded. "Put it through." The face that appeared on her screen was ancient and tired. This was Overlord Zethran, Supreme Commander of the Zephyrian Empire. "Captain Vasquez," the Overlord said, "I wish to discuss terms." "What terms?" Elena asked. "Surrender terms. For my empire." The words hung in the space between the ships. Never in galactic history had an empire surrendered to a rebellion. But, then again, there had never been a rebellion like this one. "I'm just a pilot," Elena said. "You need to talk to someone with more authority." "You misunderstand," Zethron replied. "In this war, every human speaks with authority. Every human decides their own fate. That is why we cannot defeat you." Elena thought about this. It was true in a way. The human resistance had never had a single leader or central command. Everyone from scientists to farmers to children had made their own decisions to fight. "What are you offering?" she asked. "Complete independence for all rebellious worlds, withdrawal of all Zephyrian forces, an end to the Empire's expansion. Your species will be free to govern themselves." It sounded too good to be true. Elena was suspicious. "What's the catch?" "No catch," the Overlord said. "We are defeated. We admit defeat. We ask only for peace." Elena cut the transmission and called an emergency council. Representatives from every rebel world gathered via a communication link to discuss the alien offer. The debate lasted for hours. Some species wanted to continue fighting until the Empire was completely destroyed. Others worried that this was a trap. A few wanted to negotiate for better terms, but it was Sarah Chen who asked the most important question. "What do we do with the aliens who surrender?" she said from her laboratory on Earth. "Do we become conquerors ourselves? Do we enslave them like they enslaved us?" The question silenced the council. Every species in the rebellion had suffered under alien rule. Many wanted revenge, but revenge would make them no better than their former oppressors. General Torres spoke from his bunker in the Rocky Mountains. "We didn't fight this war to become the new empire," he said. "We fought it to be free. If we're truly free, then we choose what kind of people we become." Maria Santos, now representing the civilian resistance, added her voice from Mexico. "My grandfather told me that the best victory is when your enemy becomes your friend. Maybe it's time to find out if he was right." The council voted. By a narrow margin, they decided to accept the Zephyrian surrender, but they added conditions of their own. 3 days later, representatives from both sides met on a neutral space station orbiting Jupiter. The peace talks were unlike anything in galactic history. Instead of conquered species begging for mercy, it was the former conquerors who came seeking forgiveness. Instead of harsh punishment, the rebels offered something unexpected, a chance for redemption. The peace agreement was simple. The Zephyrian Empire would be dissolved. All enslaved species would be granted full independence. Alien forces would withdraw from occupied worlds. In return, former Empire worlds could apply to join a new organization, the Galactic Federation of Free Worlds. It would be governed democratically, with each species having an equal voice regardless of their technology or military power. Admiral Kethvar signed the surrender document with hands that shook slightly. As he set down the pen, he looked up at Elena Vasquez. "I have fought in 100 campaigns," he said quietly. "I have conquered 50 worlds, but I have never faced an enemy like humanity." "We weren't your enemy," Elena replied. "We were just people who wanted to be left alone." "Yes," Kethvar agreed. "That's what made you so dangerous." The formal ceremony ending the war took place on Earth, in the ruins of the United Nations building in New York. Representatives from every species in the galaxy gathered to witness the signing of the Federation Charter. Dr. Sarah Chen, now Earth's leading xenobiologist, spoke for humanity. "1 year ago we were a single planet facing impossible odds," she said. "We could have surrendered. We could have given up hope. Instead, we chose to fight for something bigger than ourselves." She looked out at the audience, humans, Zephyrians, Krelans, Vorthak, Centaurians, and dozens of other species all sitting together as equals. "We didn't fight to destroy an empire," she continued. "We fought to prove that freedom is possible. We fought to show that any species, no matter how small or primitive, can choose their own destiny." The crowd erupted in applause that could be heard across the galaxy. But the real victory wasn't in the cheering or the ceremonies. It was in the quiet moments afterward. Maria Santos returned to her village in Mexico, where she continued teaching school. But now her students included young aliens learning alongside human children. Dr. Harrison converted his factory back to peaceful production, manufacturing tools for rebuilding instead of weapons for war. His workforce included former Zephyrian engineers who had defected during the conflict. Bill Mackenzie drove his truck routes through the Australian outback, but now he carried supplies to new settlements where humans and aliens worked together to build a better future. Admiral Kethvar accepted a position in the new Federation fleet, serving under Captain Elena Vasquez. He learned human tactics and human values, discovering that there were better ways to solve problems than conquest. General Torres became Earth's first representative to the Federation Council. He spent his time helping other worlds develop their own defense forces, teaching them that the best protection against tyranny was a population that refused to be conquered. And Sarah Chen continued her research, but now she studied cooperation instead of conflict. She wanted to understand how different species could work together despite their differences. 5 years after the war ended, she published her most important paper. It was titled, The Human Factor: Why Some Species Choose Freedom Over Safety. Her conclusion was simple. Humans had won not because they were stronger or smarter than their enemies, but because they refused to accept that defeat was inevitable. They had chosen to fight for their values even when victory seemed impossible. Other species, inspired by the human example, began making their own choices. They chose cooperation over competition. They chose freedom over security. They chose hope over fear. The galaxy would never be the same. The Empire had struck at Earth expecting easy conquest. Instead, they found a species that would not be conquered, would not surrender, and would not accept that their fate was decided by others. In the end, humans had indeed decided their fate, and in doing so, they had helped billions of other beings decide theirs as well. The Age of Empires was over. The Age of Freedom had begun.